What insight do you have into the finances of music festivals? Because the one thing that the complaint that I hear the most from people is they're getting too expensive. And I would agree with that. I mean, you mentioned the $24,000 thing or whatever. I think last year, Karen and I priced out the like super VIP for Railbird, and for two people, it was going to be like 12 grand. And that's the super VIP. Like they come pick you up at your car in the golf cart and you don't have to walk anywhere. And I mean, it's like, super deluxe VIP, and there was no way in hell we could afford that. But the biggest complaint that I hear, obviously, is that the prices keep going up. And when I think about all of the bands that are at especially the larger festivals, but even the smaller ones, those bands have pretty high performance fees. Like it's not cheap to get those folks to come and play your festival. I know there's sponsors involved. I know the ticket prices have to be at a certain level for them to make a profit, but I also know that most of the big festivals are owned by huge companies that do this and make massive profits. And so how do the finances of these things work, and where can you get the best value for what you're spending rather than going to, I'll give a Bourbon and Beyond as an example here in Louisville, which is incredibly expensive, and 100,000 people you can't move because you're shoulder to shoulder with everybody the whole time.
So Bourbon and Beyond is DW Presents, and they have like 7 to 10 different festivals they do, including Incarceration, which is in Mansfield, Ohio at the Mansfield State Penitentiary. And again, big festival. So yeah, that's a wild one. It's tattoos and metal, right? Nice. Like tattoo artists and metal at a festival at a prison.
At a prison.
Oh, that's
okay,
cool.
That tracks.
But I mean, like, it's the same thing. It'll draw, thousands of people. And so they're in the big business, and yeah, those tickets get expensive really fast. But you have to wonder, but yet they still get all these people there. So people are bitching and complaining, but for a lot of people, they're still spending the money because it's their vacation, right? And it's a vacation that's not like just going to the beach or going to the mountains or something. You're going off the planet, right? You're going to see tunes. You're going into this essential pop-up city that just springs up out of nowhere and becomes this complete universe that you're in for like 3 or 4 days at those big festivals, especially the EDM ones, right? Like it's like going to another planet. So I think that people are willing to open up the pocketbooks, and until people stop going, they're not going to lower the prices, right? Like that's the only way they're going to lower the prices. If suddenly they can't get people in the door, and everybody says, F you, I'll just stream this or something. So you talk about the revenue model. I'm still getting my head around like how this all works, because I've only been on the inside of this for about 4 months now, fan for life, but different viewpoint here. I think that the biggest revenue opportunity for festivals is to figure out the live stream and sell the live stream passes on things like Nugs or YouTube or whatever, because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of great festivals, right? I'm a couch surfer when it comes to festivals. I have a Nugs subscription and I follow tours and stuff, but there's not a lot of festivals on Nugs. It's more just concerts. And the big problem that I found out is it's the remote venues and Wi-Fi, and it's having enough bandwidth to actually connect to be able to stream. And I think that Elon Musk's Starlink is going to be cracking that code, right? If you look at the bandwidth that's available on Starlink, you can easily get 25 megabits up or whatever that is. Yeah. So, and all you need is open sky, right? Well, most festivals are in a great big field.
Yeah.
That's honestly one of the ideas that I'd like to start working on, is figuring out how to bring mobile streaming to festivals, because that's gonna impact the ticket prices to be there, but it's also gonna make festivals more readily available, because the best performances that you ever see some of these bands do are at festivals, because of the back and forth with the audience and the vibe. And, it's the snake eating its own tail. The band gives to the audience gives to the band, vice versa. But I think streaming is a big revenue opportunity. And I think that the best festivals that I've been to that I see really focus on the vendors, right? Like if you bring in the vendors, they're paying a little bit more, but that's also a draw to the crowd, the food, the craft beer, the merch vendors. The bigger the market, it's a trade show. The bigger the marketplace, the more people are going to go. That's one aspect. And then I think the add-on services, right? The convenience stuff to really sell up the VIP packages, but they've got to be worth it. This festival I'm going to in Florida, one of their VIP inclusions, they actually have grocery service that they'll go out and get your groceries. So you can pay a VIP package. They bring a camper on site for you. They stock it. If you need anything during the day, they have a concierge to leave the festival and go to a local store and get it for you and come back.
Oh my.
But if that's your vacation for the year, if you think about that, that was what you would get at an all-inclusive resort in Cancun. So why not do that at a music festival? If the beach is not your vibe and you want to be in the woods and seeing some tunes, make it. It's all about designing the overall experience. And then there's the visual aspect of it too. I think that's a thing that doesn't get talked about enough. But if you look at EDM festivals, it's all the visuals, right? Like I can only take so much, EDM for long. I like it, but I need a break from it. But man, the light shows and the digital screens and the graphics and the way they light up the forest and do the trees and stuff, that's just, that's that whole leaving the planet experience that people are paying for,
Very cool.
Wow. So you talk about ways to increase revenue and things like that from a business perspective, but from your personal opinion, what makes a good festival?
I mean, that's an interesting question because my first reaction to that was it's the people, right? But you don't get the people there unless you have the right lineup, So I always look at these festival promoters and producers when they're choosing the lineup, they're like alchemists, right? Example of this, right? 1999, Woodstock. That was the year I graduated high school. I think it was Woodstock 3. Was that 2 or 3? I can't remember. But it was a disaster, right? Because it was Limp Bizkit and Fred Durst and a bunch of angry white middle-aged guys screaming at the crowd, getting the crowd all hyped up, setting shit on fire, right? So like the lineup definitely impacted the vibe of that big festival, right? You go to anything that's related to like the Deadhead scene, right? Like with the jam bands and stuff, you're going to get a nice friendly vibe. Bluegrass is like that. Bluegrass is going to be welcoming. It's really about the bands that you kind of pick and choose together. Back to your point about the bigger festivals that are spanning genres, that could be a problem that they get into, right? Like too many genres mixed in one place with different, metal is a different feel at a festival than country or bluegrass or whatever, right? Not that that's a bad thing, but I think that's the caution is that they have to really know that the lineup's going to drive the crowd and the crowd's going to create the vibe.
Well, speaking of the lineup driving the crowd, I have an out of left field question for you because I'll get these lineups and I'll give you 2 examples and then I'll ask the question. Or I'll give you 1 example and then I'll ask the question the way I wanted to ask it. So I'm going through the lineup for, I believe it was Bourbon and Beyond this last year. And it was Neil Young at first. He got replaced by Sting, but it was Neil Young and it was, all of these great bands. And it was just this really interesting mix of mostly rock and roll, a little bit of country, but a really good lineup. And then there was the Beach Boys. And I was just like, well, where did they come from? So that was an example that leads me to this question. Why the fuck does Ludacris keep popping up with these motherfucking things?
I've seen this and I have no idea, like who's sitting there making the decisions. I wonder if it's like, maybe we can get a little bit more audience if we just bring him in and then we'll expose all these people to this other music. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And not that I'm not, I'm not really a fan of Luda, but I had my days in college.
Luda just feel like it. I feel like when he is on the lineup list, it's never with other hip hop, R&B. It's never with that crowd. It's always like Charles Wesley Godwin and My Morning Jacket and Dave Matthews Band and Ludacris. And you're like, Ludacris. What?
Yeah. Where did that come from?
Doesn't make any sense. Is his agent trying to make him way more mainstream than he should be? I don't understand. I just don't. The Ludacris thing throws me for a loop. I look for him now because he always shows up on one somewhere that doesn't make any sense.
You know what that is? It's a hell of an agent. It's a hell of a manager, right? Like somebody who's very good at selling.
Yeah, good point. So the bigger festivals, you've got acts ranging from the Beach Boys to Ludacris. What about some hidden gems that you'd recommend? Like maybe they're a little bit smaller, maybe they're off the beaten track, but what do you think, what should we be looking out for?
I mean, so like one of the hidden gems I mentioned, that's that Lazy Jam Festival. For a small festival, they do everything right. Great lights, great sound, good band selection. I am a big fan of, and I'm wearing the shirt, the Caverns. So what they're doing down in Grundy County, Tennessee, and what Todd Mayo and his team are doing down there, they have a vision for how music is changing the world and they're going after it. So anything that they're doing, I think if you get a chance to get down to the Caverns, you're going to see some great music there. Outside of that, Another one of my favorite venues that has great festivals is a hidden gem in Ohio called Nelson Ledges Quarry Park. And so this place has been around, God, 30, 40 years at this point, and been a festival grounds for a very long time. I want to say that the Dead played there at some point, but the stories that come out of this place, like in the 80s and the 90s, are a little bit crazy as you get to know some locals. But as a venue, you've got it's literally a quarry lake, so it's a spring-fed lake. I guess the story is it was a quarry and they hit a spring and it filled the thing up, and there's a rumor that there's construction equipment down at the bottom of the lake, but it's always like this nice crisp, like 70 degrees. You can kayak, there's an island, there's cliff jumping, and the stage is on the beach, right? And then the campground is back in the woods, and they have camper stuff, but if you're going to go to Nelson Ledges, you definitely need to tent camp because it's worth it, because you're in the trees in the forest and you could get lost, right? Like walking around there with all the lights and stuff at night, it's just like its own little world. But it is literally a legendary. So they do Grassfire, which is a bluegrass festival. Last year I got to see Del McCurry Band, Peter Rowan, Green Sky Bluegrass, dozens of others. And then they also do a thing called Grateful Fest, which was 2 weeks after that. So I went up for both. And both of those festivals were incredible, right? But what was interesting was that Grateful Fest, so there's a big EDM presence in Northeast Ohio. So you have this Grateful Dead festival during the day, bands like High Rider, a lot of like tribute bands. And then at night, all of a sudden you're hearing like EDM techno coming from way out in the meadows in camp. And there's like somebody had moved like an entire DJ stand out there and sound system and just at their campsite and was having a party.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really interesting venue. If you ever are looking for they do like 4 to 6 festivals a year that are, one of the big ones is Badfish, which is kind of dub and sublime oriented type stuff. But check out Nelson Ledges Quarry Park. It's a great time. And what's nice about them is there's tons of other stuff to do that's not music related, right? So if you're taking your family to a festival, or you have people that, like my wife is not super into the same music that I am, but she'll go with me, right? But there's all kinds of other stuff to do. And then right down the road from there, they have Nelson Ledges State Park, which is some of the best hiking in Ohio. Nice. Rock formations and stuff like that. So it's if you're looking for a real diamond in the rough, it's a hidden gem.
That's very cool. I am headed to the caverns in April, I believe it is, this year to see 49 Winchester and Town Mountain together.
Oh, nice.
So
in the cave or on the big stage?
In the cave.
In the cave.
Yeah.
The cave.
So
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. You'll have to introduce me to your guy so I can holler at him when I'm down there. So
Yeah, I'll be down there for Daniel Donato's Cosmic Country and Camp Cosmic, which is Donato's group, and then Mountain Grass Unit, which is one of my favorite new bluegrass bands. A bunch of college guys out of Alabama that are just phenomenal.
Nice.
And there's a few others down there, but yeah, that's a good place down there. They do a good job.